What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This has been a long time coming. I was waiting to make a free agency video, and then all the insanity happened. So I decided I wanted to cover division by division, and I was going to try to combine certain divisions, but considering the fact that a lot of these videos, there's a lot to be discussed, I really couldn't, so to make these videos just remotely digestible or watchable, we're doing division by division. We're going to start in the AFC, work to the NFC. I just think that's the format that's best. We're going to start with the AFC West today, which was probably the most insane division in the NFL this offseason. It was pretty entertaining, though. Lots of entertainment to be had. And you notice I put the Modern Warfare 2 logo, because to me, that's what this division is now. It's basically Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. Everyone just going for insane weapons and kill streaks, and we're going to find out just who exactly got the nuke before everybody else got to it. The West is going to be insane this year. The AFC West will probably be a 4-horse race, and I legitimately kind of hope, even as a Broncos fan, and I have football hate for 3 teams in this division. I hate 3 teams in this division, and yet I sincerely hope we get all of these teams in the playoffs, because we deserve more than just regular season football for what these teams are doing. So, that's just honestly my opinion. So we're going to go from last to first, because I like going through that order. The team that finished last, the team that finished first, especially in terms of talking teams that have improved or that needed to improve. So we're going to start with my favorite team, the team I'm a fan of, the Denver Broncos. As a Broncos fan myself, I cannot be happier with this offseason. I want to build the statue to George Payton now. Obviously, we can't because, they got to play the games first. But, good Lord, this offseason is incredible. Let's start with the Nathaniel Hackett hire. I thought that was an incredible hire, Nathaniel Hackett, because, one, it finally addresses the thing that the Broncos have struggled most with, which is their offense. They haven't had a good offense in 6 years, actually 8 years. Let's talk about 8 years. Even 2015, even with Peyton Manning, that offense wasn't very good. That was basically the corpse of Peyton Manning carried by an elite defense. They haven't had a productive offense, honestly, since 2014. They've had glimpses of being a good offense, like times in 2018. They had a couple games in 2017 where they looked all right. They had the 5 games of Drew Lock's rookie year. They had some games with Teddy there they looked pretty good, but never a consistent year, because obviously they haven't had a good offensive play caller and they haven't had a good quarterback. But now you got Nathaniel Hackett, who runs a Shanahan-inspired offense, and I think I'm going to have to make a video on those guys pretty soon. I discussed it in my coaching hires video, so you can go check that out there, and I just talked about Nathaniel Hackett all by himself when he was hired as the Broncos head coach, because I personally thought that Nathaniel Hackett is going to be able to bring in the Shanahan-inspired offense, but the Broncos pretty much mastered. Shanahan's offense, some of his best stuff was on display in Denver, and that was even beyond John Elway. That was with guys like Brian Griese, Jake Plummer, and Jay Cutler playing quarterback. The Shanahan offense still looks pretty damn good. So I'm excited to see what Hackett brings. He's a Shanahan disciple. Those guys usually work out in the league, and I expect the same here. So let's start with the first big move of the offseason. They trade Russell Wilson. Or they trade for Russell Wilson, I should say. They trade for him, and from the Seattle Seahawks, they end up trading Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, Noah Fant, 2 first-round picks in 2022 and 2023, a 2022 and 2023 second-round pick, and a 5th-round pick in 2023, I believe. It's absolutely maddening that they were able to get that trade. And they got a 4th-round pick in return. And the Broncos still have 10 picks to use, including a second-rounder. Now, granted, it's 64th. It's the final pick of the second round. But you can still use it on someone. It's a pretty deep talent class. So I'm baffled that they got Russell Wilson for what they did. And we'll talk about some of the key losses right away. Let's talk about those. Drew Lock. You guys know how I feel about Drew Lock and how I've kind of been one of the optimistic side when it comes to him. I think he could do well in Seattle. I hope he does well in Seattle. I'm rooting for him. Sometimes it's just a fresh scenery. That's what you need. You need a fresh start. I hope he does well. I'm not sure about Pete Carroll, though. I think Seahawk fans would pretty much all agree that choosing 70-year-old Pete Carroll over Russell Wilson is kind of a massive mistake because, Russell Wilson's your franchise quarterback, and Pete Carroll may not have that much time left even coaching in the NFL. Russ, if he really wants to play 10 to 12 years, I sincerely believe he could. So I don't know why you're not siding with your franchise quarterback that's brought you your only Super Bowl ever. So, that baffled me. But as a Bronco fan, I'm extremely happy. This team is ready to go. They have an elite quarterback. And I'm going to make a video on Russell Wilson later talking about what he brings to this team and what they need. Russell Wilson is everything that the Broncos you could want in a quarterback. I don't think I need to elaborate too much on him. Again, I'm going to make a video on him later, but absolutely amazing signing for the Broncos. And then they ended up getting Randy Gregory. They poached him from Dallas after the Cowboys kind of botched those negotiations. They had him, and then they changed the language on him last second. And then he says, okay, screw that. I'm going to sign in Denver for a similar amount of money. The term's a little smaller than what Dallas is willing to give him because Jerry Jones is he opened up the wallets despite the fact that he was kind of in a cap trouble this offseason. And don't worry, Cowboys. Cowboys will get to you. But Randy Gregory, he's going to bring a lot of needed pass rush to this defense. If you watch his tape and you saw him throughout the last couple of years, the guy is wicked fast off the ball. He's an incredible speed rusher. He can fire off so fast. He gets in the backfield really quickly. He's going to bring a speed rusher that the Broncos haven't had in a while, honestly. He's not particularly incredible at run defense, but at the same time, Murray brought him here to hunt quarterbacks, which is what he's good at. And not to mention, we're going to address this right now when it comes to run defense. They re-signed Josie Jewell, which I was all for. I was kind of on the fence whether or not to bring him back personally, but then we find out that apparently we needed him way more than we did. Josie Jewell was crucial to this run defense. And it showed in games like the Eagles, when they played the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Raiders. They played the Ravens when they played the Steelers, and they played the freaking Browns when they had Ernest Johnson and Case Keenum playing for them. All these guys, it showed just how bad the run defense was without him. Like, they needed Josie Jewell for that run defense. I think we found out how much we missed him. It's a 2-year deal. It's pretty cheap. I'm glad he's back. And I like the linebacking core that they have. And now I am going to address, I didn't put him in the key gains because I didn't think he was vital. And I also should address, I'm not going to put every single signing that each team made, just the ones that I felt were important in terms of key losses and key gains. So they signed Alex Singleton from the Eagles, but to me, he seems more like a rotationary linebacker and a special teams player. I'm comfortable with guys like Browning, Griffith, Jewell. I'm comfortable with those guys, even maybe Sternat if he's back. I'm comfortable with them being in the starting rotational linebackers because I thought they played really well in the back half of last year. I'm fine with that. I've heard they might want to move Browning down to edge. I don't know why, personally. I think Chubb and Gregory are your starters next year, and Cooper is great in rotation. He played really well last year, so I'm fine with Cooper. I don't know why you would move Browning down to edge. I thought he played pretty well at middle linebacker, but Josie Jewell and Randy Gregory, those two guys kind of complement each other in terms of the way they're going to fit the scheme. What you wanted, just exactly what you needed. And then adding to that defense, Quan Williams. This is after this is after guys like Kyle Fuller walked, and Kyle Fuller has to be one of the most disappointing free agents I've seen in Denver in a long time. They actually had back-to-back disappointing free agent corners. Remember, they traded a fourth for AJ Bouye, which, I mean, it's not really like a loss or anything. You only gave up a fourth-round pick, which was probably nothing for Jacksonville. And AJ just got hurt. He didn't play that well when he was healthy, and he was gone after 1 year. And Fuller was kind of the same thing. He really got beat deep on a lot of plays. He did not play his assignment really well, which was odd considering he was with a coach in a scheme that he was familiar with. I thought he was going to play really well with Vic Fangio. That didn't happen. So, that that didn't work out. So Fuller's gone. So they bring in Quan Williams. Pat Surtain is obviously the number one. Darby, who I thought played pretty well last year. Then you have Michael Ojemudia, who I'm ready to see play more snaps. He played pretty well in the back half of last year, too. I was excited to see him get more rotation time, and I think he's ready to get back in it. They lost Nate Hairston, who I kind of liked, actually, as a depth player and as a good slot or nickel corner or even a dime corner. I thought he was okay. Nate Hairston, he signed with Minnesota. I think you can maybe draft somebody, but at the same time, I would bring back Bryce Callahan, and you'll see in the free agents pending thing we'll get to. But yeah, Quan Williams, I'm glad with that signing. He knows the scheme, he knows the coaching staff, so I'm good. That's a good signing for Quan Williams. And then a big issue they needed to address was right tackle, which we haven't had a legitimate right tackle in years in Denver, and I don't think they could go through another year of rotationary guys. I mean, just the past 2 seasons, we've started 3 or 4 different guys at right tackle. We had Elijah Wilkinson, and then he got hurt, and then we went to DeMar Dotson, who was fine, but he was just a holdover. Then Calvin Anderson would come in occasionally in rotation. They would plug in Bobby Massey, who they signed. It was just a mess over there at right tackle, and I think they needed to get a guy of the future. I wanted a guy like either Lyle Collins or Teron Armstead. Obviously, that didn't work out, but they get Billy Turner, who's played in Denver before, but he hails from Green Bay, so he's played in the Hackett scheme, so he knows what Nathaniel Hackett likes to do, and he'll fit the run scheme very well. He played pretty good as a right tackle in Green Bay. It's a 1-year deal, so you can obviously it's a prove it type deal. He knows this team. He knows the offense. I think it's a perfect fit. Like, if I'm Russell Wilson, I'm looking at this offensive line that Denver has, and I think, wow, this is probably going to be one of the best offensive lines of his entire career. It's probably the best offensive line he's had in years. You got Garrett Bowles, who's emerged as a top-tier tackle at left tackle. You got Dalton Reisner, who had a bit of a downish year last year, though I still liked him. I think he's pretty good, and I like Reisner at left guard, and I don't think Lloyd Cushenberry gets enough credit for the strides he took at center last year. So Lloyd Cushenberry, got him at center. You have probably Quinn Minert starting at guard next year because I think he proved he was ready to start next year. And then you have Billy Turner at right tackle. I think that's a pretty formidable line. If I'm Russell Wilson, I'm happy with this. An underrated signing with the 5th one on the list here is DJ Jones, the defensive tackle out of San Francisco. The Broncos needed run defense replacement on the line after Shelby Harris got traded. That's a pretty fantastic ad. DJ Jones, he's going to bring a lot to that front 7. Again, he's played in this defensive scheme before. A lot of West Coast guys being brought in for Denver. I like this signing. He's a great defensive stuffer. He's an okay-ish pass rusher, but then again, if we want interior pass rush, that's where you got a guy like Draymond Jones who had a breakout year last year. So overall, I think the Broncos had a phenomenal offseason just on paper. In terms of the free agents pending, I would like to see Melvin Gordon back just because I think he brings a nice 1-2 punch with Javonte, but I get it if they don't want to bring him back. I'm fine with that. They could probably draft a guy or sign a cheaper guy at the bench, or they could they'll probably just bump Mike Boone into the number 2 role, which I think he's fine with that. So I'm cool with just bringing back Gordon. I'm fine if they just roll with Boone or maybe a draft guy next year. I don't know. Kareem Jackson, I would like to bring him back, but it'd be a 1-year deal. The dude's 34, and he doesn't have, for a safety, especially a big, physical, hard-hitting safety who plays like he does, it's a lot tougher for him to keep that up. And I think they're fine with Caden Stearns starting, who I really like as a safety, by the way. I thought Caden Stearns was a great steal. I had him as a 3rd-round talent. They got him in the 5th round. So he looked, I don't know if he's going to be I think he's going to be the starter next year, most likely if Kareem doesn't come back. I'm fine if they roll with Caden. Also cool they bring Jackson back for maybe 1 more season and then let Stearns step in. And that's just me personally. I've already talked about Bryce Callahan. A couple of the key losses I want to address. Shelby Harris. That kind of hurt that we had to trade him. I really liked him in Denver as a pass defender, best big man hands in the league. and as a run stuffer, but I get it. You want to get Russell Wilson, you're going to have to give up a premium piece or two. Same with Noah Fant. I was sad that we traded Noah Fant because I was like salivating to see what it would look like if he was in the offense with Russell Wilson. I thought he would have flourished. He'd have been phenomenal because he wouldn't be misused like he was with Pat Shurmur. He'd finally be used as the deep threat vertical tight end that they drafted him for, and he'd have a quarterback that can do it for him. But I hope he does well in Seattle. I just wanted to see what it would look like if he was going to be able to play with Russell Wilson, but it's kind of a shame. But yeah, that's it for the Broncos. If you're a fan like me, you got to be in love with this offseason. Impossible not to be. Now we're going to move to the third place team, and I can't believe they finished third place last year. They shouldn't have. That's the Los Angeles Chargers. With all that talent, they should not have finished third. They should have probably made it into the playoffs. Guarantee you fans are still bitter over that non-tie, and I don't blame them. But at the same time, they had a pretty good offseason too. Like they added a lot to their team. The only two major losses, they lost some depth pieces for sure. Like people are going to bring up that they may not bring back Chris Harris Jr. I don't look at that as a key loss because, one, the defense wasn't that good last year, and second, Chris Harris, as much as I love him as a Denver fan, Chris Harris Jr., he's just not what he was. He can't cover the deep threats like he's used to. He gets beat a lot, especially down the field. He's just not the corner that he was, and that's just a factor of age. And so I love Chris Harris, but he's not the number one that he used to be. So, but they replaced that just fine. They got J.C. Jackson. I cannot believe that the Patriots didn't at least franchise tag in like a sign-and trade type thing. Like, you don't want to sign him back, or if you can't sign him back, I'm fine with that. At least trade the guy. I guarantee you the Chargers would have probably given you a decent amount for him, especially with how much they signed him to and the fact that he was the top corner being chased on the market. Like, dude, come on. Why not go after... why not a sign-and trade? But that's later for New England. But yeah, I'm proud of what the Chargers did. J.C. Jackson, he'll fix that secondary, or at least he'll help it out. And then you have a guy like Asante Samuel Jr., who I thought was an absolute steal for them. I can't believe he did that. So good job. I thought that was a steal. And then you have Derwin James and that at the safety position. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. They've at least addressed some part of it. But then they addressed their edge drop-off because Melvin Ingram was traded last year, and clearly he just wasn't the player he was. But who better to pair with Joey Bosa than Khalil freaking Mack? Like, good Lord. Talk about a terrifying tandem. Glad the Broncos addressed right tackle, but those two are going to terrorize everybody. Everybody in the AFC West has their quarterbacks, and they have their quarterback killers. Like, just... good Lord. Khalil Mack, I know he had some drop-off last year with the Bears, but I think he's still a pretty good edge rusher. He's definitely top 5. And now you're going to put him in a Chargers offense, a Charger defense that definitely fits him way more. Like, the Bears had a defense that fit him for the first couple of years, and then they kind of kept changing it up on him, and he couldn't stay healthy, and then he had a couple injuries, and that happened. And now he's in a defense that fits him way more. So, yeah, that's a steal for the Chargers, and the fact that they didn't have to give up that much for him. Again, we'll get to the Bears later, but that's highway robbery that the Chargers committed. Even a great underrated signing, Sebastian Joseph Day, who they got from the Rams, who I thought took some good strides to being a starting tackle last year, at least on the defensive front. Decent run stuffer. He's okay in the pass rush. I mean, he can benefit a lot more when he has a guy like Aaron freaking Donald next to him. And then eventually he had Von Miller joining later in the season, which that helped. That said, though, I think Sebastian Joseph Day, I think that's a decent signing. It's definitely going to help their atrocious run defense. That was their biggest problem last year. They couldn't stop the run. So, good signing there from the Chargers. 4, Gerald Everett. Decent tight end. Not one I'm in love with. He's had a couple down years. Like, he kind of... like when Jared Goff had that drop off after 2018 in LA. Everett kind of suffered in time. I thought he'd have a bit of a reboot in Seattle, but he had some problems in Seattle. I think he'll definitely do better with Justin Herbert, but that said, I'm fine with him as he's just a cog in this offense. So it's not a signing that I'm absolutely in love with, but it's a decent signing, all things considered. There are two major losses that I put down. They lost a few depth pieces, but like the major key pieces, again, I'm just trying to keep this digestible. Their decent losses were Uchenna and Wasu, which, I mean, you get Khalil Mack. I think you're fine with Khalil Mack rolling forward as your main guy. And then Brian Bulaga, when they signed him, I thought that was going to be a home run signing. He just couldn't stay healthy. He played such a minimal amount of snaps, and the guy that came in for him, he played really well last year. I think he's their starter moving forward, and it's just a case of he couldn't stay healthy. Bulaga's a good right tackle, he's just not what he was. So, yeah, the Chargers had a really good offseason as well. I would be shocked if they miss the playoffs again. Then I think you got to fire Staley. I'm sorry, this talent should not miss. But they are going to have some stiff competition because the Raiders added too. They were really quiet this offseason, and a lot of people wondering what they were doing because you saw the Chargers and the Broncos just loading and loading and loading. And the Raiders are like, yeah, y'all made the playoffs, but you have a chance to really make your team a wagon here. They did add some key pieces here. We'll talk with their gains first. The first one, Devontae Adams with Green Bay. Yeah, they traded a lot for him, but now granted, they paid him a lot of money, and you can honestly thank Jacksonville and their insane spending spree, and we'll get to that. Oh, we will get to that. Jacksonville's mad spending spree for the wide receiver uptake in salaries, but I think Devontae Adams, he's worth the money, and he's going to add them. They haven't had a legitimate deep threat in a long time, probably since they traded Amari Cooper, and now they got one. They got Devontae Adams, who I think a lot of people would agree is the best wide receiver in the league, and I think he'll play he obviously was college teammates with Derek Carr. They have a great relationship. Carr's been recruiting him for a year now, and Carr got what he wanted. They gave up a lot to get him, but if it helps them go after Kansas City, I don't think anyone's going to complain. Then they got the big edge rusher signing of the offseason. They got Chandler Jones out of Arizona, which is good. They haven't had a pass rusher, again, since they traded Khalil Mack. You can thank Gruden for that. But yeah, they haven't had an edge rusher since that, so they go out and they get Chandler Jones. And what I like about Chandler Jones is that he is going to be now their primary engine of their defense. I like Max Crosby, and they extended him this offseason. I thought Crosby was a great extension. So you have him with Chandler Jones. That looks like a really damn good pass rush. So, as a Denver fan, I'm glad we signed right tackles because the edge rushers in this division, it's not fair. Not fair. And then third, they address their run defense. They get Bilal Nichols. They benefit from the Chicago defensive purge due to their contract problems. They bring in Bilal Nichols, who's a great run defender. He's going to help that defense a lot. And with all of the great running backs that are in this division, yeah, you've got to prioritize run defense. I talked about that with the Chargers. I talked about that with the Broncos. Got to talk about that with the Raiders, too. Fourth, this is more of a minor one. They traded Yannick Ngakoue just straight up to Indy for Rock Ya-Sin. Ya-Sin's a decent corner. I don't think he developed into what the Colts were thinking he was going to be. I think he's a decent corner. I think he'll be fine as long as he's not your number one, which is the biggest concern for me. They lost Casey Hayward. You see him on the big losses signing. They lost Casey Hayward. I just don't get that either because their secondary has been a huge issue for years. And Rock Ya-Sin is a decent corner, but I don't know if he'd be your top corner. They also, Nate Dobbs had his issue with his DUI. You had the incident with Arnett that pretty much got him released. I like that they're addressing their front seven, but I think their corners are going to need some addressing. You can do that in the draft, but it'll have to be in the second round because you trade your first rounder to Green Bay. So have fun with that. In terms of free agents pending, Deshaun Jackson, I'd be interested to see if they bring him back. I mean, their receiver core looks pretty okay to me. Actually looks pretty good, all things considered. You got Adams at the 1. Renfro has been a pleasant surprise for a 5th-round pick. He's emerged as one of their best receivers. Bryan Edwards, even he looked all right last year. I think he'll be fine. Zay Jones, obviously, they lost him to Jacksonville's mad spending spree, but I think it'll be fine. Obviously, again, you got Devontae Adams, and you have Darren Waller. I think they'll be just fine at wide receiver. I would not be surprised if they didn't bring back Deshaun Jackson, simply because he's getting up there in age, and I don't know if he is what he was anymore. Well, then again, I said that last year, and he can still burn you deep. He's still got that deep speed. But I would not blame him if they just try to get younger at wide receiver and we got Devontae Adams, we're good. Second is KJ Wright at linebacker. They have, again, their rush defense has been a bit of a huge issue over the years, and KJ Wright's kind of been a part of that. He's a good linebacker, but he did not fit with Oakland's scheme, and I would not be surprised if he didn't come back. Same with Nick Kwiatkowski. He's more of a depth guy, rotationary guy. I don't know if he's a full-time starter. They might bring him back, though, as a rotationary guy. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. In terms of key losses, I addressed Ngakoue, Hayward, and Jones. I'm surprised they let Carl Nassib go. I thought he was one of their better defensive players. But the Raiders are basically just retooling their defense. Old players out, new players in, and I don't blame them for that. Their defense was a huge problem last year. Then you have Marcus Mariota, who's a decent backup quarterback. He got his deal in Atlanta. I think the Raiders will be fine. At this point, I don't know how key of a loss a backup quarterback is, but Mariota's a good backup quarterback. So Raiders had a good offseason too. I think all these 3 teams I've just mentioned, the Raiders, the Broncos, and the Chargers, they're ready to go after Kansas City, which finally leads us to the team of the hour, the defending AFC West champions, the Chiefs. It's very rare I can say I did not like their offseason, but yeah, I didn't like their offseason. Everyone else got better. I think the Chiefs got worse, and significantly so. In terms of key signings back, Juju Smith-Schuster, who is fine as a number 2. He's not a number 1. I think when he lost Antonio Brown, it proved that he needed that help to create space. He can't do it by himself. I don't know how much Marquez Valdes-Scantling is going to help that, though, especially after the Tyreek Hill thing. Scantling's a great deep threat. He's got that 4.3 speed, but he's your replacement for Tyreek Hill. I don't know if that's going to work. Valdes-Scantling is good. He's a good wide receiver. He's not Tyreek Hill. So I think that's going to take some time to get used to as well. Justin Reed, like that signing. Their secondary was hot garbage last year. Now, granted, their secondary is still bad, and we'll get to that in a bit. But Justin Reed, that's a good signing for the Chiefs, but who's playing alongside him? We'll get to that in a bit. Ronald Jones, decent running back. I think he just kind of I think he's actually a pretty good running back. He showed a lot of great stuff in Tampa Bay. I think he got buried by Leonard Fournette, really kind of reviving his career. So I don't blame the Chiefs for that, the Bucs for that. Fournette's the better back. You go Fournette, and I think Jones will do fine having a 1-2 punch with him and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Maybe McKinnon's still in the mix if he comes back, but I think Jones and Helaire are the two backs when the Chiefs take the field. Key losses. Oh boy. Tyrann Mathieu. I'm surprised they let him walk. He's like the one good thing about that secondary. So yeah, whoever get Tyrann Mathieu, congratulations, you're getting an elite safety like the Honey Badger. Maybe it was a cap thing. I can understand that. The Chiefs are finally realizing that Mahomes, as good as he is, And he's worth what they paid him. Don't get me wrong. He is worth what they paid him. Eventually, that cap space, it does come back to bite you. And Matthew's the first casualty. And then Demarcus Robinson. I like Demarcus Robinson as a wide receiver. The Chiefs are basically just let go of their old receiver core, except for McCole Hardman. Like he's the only one left. Robinson's gone, Pringle's gone, Hill's gone. They're all of them are gone. So DeMarcus Robinson, they'll miss him. Charvarius Ward, that's a huge one. Losing Charvarius Ward, he was by far their best corner, and now he's out. So I don't know what they're going to do. They didn't really dress corner this offseason. I wonder what they're going to do in the draft. They also lost Mike Hughes, so that hurts them. Maybe they'll just recruit some guys in the draft. This is a decent corner class, but I don't know if just one of these guys is enough to fix it. And now the fact that you got Justin Herbert, Russell Wilson, and Derek Carr, and they've all reloaded with weapons, like this is going to be the pass-happy division of the NFL, the AFC West. The passes in this game are going to be insane, and if the Chiefs don't address that secondary, they're going to get into a lot of barn burners, and you can't win a lot of games that way. Alex Hitchens, decent linebacker, he's fine. Not like the death of their defense. I think most of that, again, does become through Tyrann Mathieu, but Hitchens, just another loss from a defense that wasn't too deep to begin with. Next was Daniel Sorensen. He went to New Orleans. I'm fine with that. First off, as a Denver fan, Sorensen always was at his best against us. Like, he only got pick sixes against the Broncos, which annoyed the hell out of me. So I'm fine with him leaving. I think Chiefs fans will be fine with him too. He was not a great safety except when he played Denver. So yeah, then there's the Tyreek Hill thing. I get it. The Chiefs couldn't truly pay him. I mean, they tried to, but they would have been way up against that cap if they'd offered Tyreek Hill that money, and then it's other losses on top of that you need to replenish. So it's fine. I get why they traded him. It's just they're gonna feel that hurt at some point in the season. Again, Chiefs fans, you'll probably still be the favorite to win the division just because you have Reed and Mahomes. But this division's going to be an absolute bloodbath this year. So that's my review on the AFC West. And again, this division's going to be it's going to be insane this year, and I can't wait to watch it. This will be some of the best football we have seen like ever, and I can't wait for you guys to see it all with me. The AFC West is clearly going to be Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer if it were football. Thank you guys for watching the video on the West. This is the first video done. We're going to do the AFC North in a couple of days. I'll do it every other day. I'll release the North. That division was interesting. But yeah, so this is the West. The wild West at its finest. Hope you guys are ready. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you guys for the AFC North video. And until then, see you guys later.